Welcome back to the broadcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show. As we cover some of the stuff happening in New York City, we're going to be going over what we see with Zohran Mamdani. And quite frankly, we knew this was going to happen. What did New Yorkers expect to happen? If this is your first time here, welcome to the Equally Yoked Show. I'm your host, and email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyyokeshow.com. Hey man, God bless you. Dead Man Lives. We were completely missing you on the show. It felt a little empty, and we just prayed for you. We wanted to make sure you're okay. And good. Glad you are okay, and you helped your daughter move. That's awesome. Congratulations. Where from you? I think you mean, where am I from? I have no idea if that's the question, but I'm from California. So as we look at Zohran Mamdani, and what he said, he just had his first 100 days, little speech here. And a lot of these folks behind him, I don't know. A lot of them, I don't know. They look a little paid. Some of them, especially the four in front, they don't look like they want to be there. There's five. There's a woman right behind, directly behind Mamdani. But look, a lot of these fools look fake. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. Whether they're paid or not, who knows? But it looks absolutely staged. And I don't even think they're buying his policies if they are indeed followers of Mamdani. But I do need to mention, just before we get started with Mamdani, this is something that is important to note. Something very important is simply Eric Swalwell dropped out of the California gubernatorial race. Amazing. Here's a statement that says, "I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes and judgments I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegations made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. I am aware of efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against me and other members. Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong, but it's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. I will work with my staff in the coming days to ensure they are able, in my absence, to serve the good will or the good people of the 14th Congressional District." This is good news concerning interesting. Why? Oh, you're laughing. Oh, God bless you. I was wondering why your name didn't come up as a moderator when you sent the laughing disco. Appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate that, brother. That's why it confused me so much. I'm like, was that an accident? Anyway, not an accident. Swalwell, we've been covering him. He was the lead Democrat in the California gubernatorial race. And now he's not, because he has resigned. Not only has he dropped out of the race, but also resigned from Congress, which is excellent news. And look, Eric Swalwell and the dirt behind him, this is what happens. This is what happens when you involve yourself in malicious misconduct, sexual misconduct. And quite frankly, even your own constituents did not actually pulled away from their endorsement. 21 Democrats pulled away from their endorsement from you, Eric Swalwell. And good. Because you don't deserve that seat. You don't deserve to have a seat in California as a governor, to run this country, to run the state down more than it already has been. And I think Californians are finally sick. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But we're looking at Steve Hilton. Steve Hilton, who's leading the Republican gubernatorial race in California, who's projected to win. These are the California primary advancers. Steve Hilton at 80. This is actually according to Kalshi, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. 83% are going for Steve Hilton. Tom Steyer just below Steve Hilton, which is surprising. I believe he's running as a Democrat or as a socialist, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm seeing his ads everywhere. And this guy could potentially come up suddenly and quickly as the next Democrat in California. Do we really believe that California can have a chance at turning red? Maybe. But we need to end this one-party rule because this is getting very, very bad in California. Now let's go back to Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani said this.
And as we prepare for the World Cup, we are delivering major street upgrades, including a redesign of 9th Avenue and expanded bike lanes and pedestrian spaces across downtown Manhattan.
By the way, God bless you, bro. Sending some wonderful sun balloons. What is a sun balloon? For 500 joules. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
Throughout every day of this work, we have contended with a historic budget deficit larger than even that of the Great Recession. Unlike those who came before us, we will budget with transparency and accountability. As we have responded to this crisis, I have thought often of the Margaret Thatcher quote. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. If anything, my friends, it seems that you eventually need a socialist to clean up the mess.
Look, Zohran Mamdani, and the fact that he keeps going back to, lifting himself up as a socialist. I know, right? One white person behind him. They try to make it look diverse. Look, they did this. They do this at every one of his speeches. They put a diverse set of people. They stage it specifically to look like this. Look at all of his speeches. They stage his speech like this on purpose in order to make him seem more diverse. Okay. Not only that, does it look like they're doing this on an SNL set. However, Zohran Mamdani and people think the fact that he is this socialist mayor that's going to turn it all around, at least the folks who voted for him, would quickly and literally have buyer's remorse because of his policies, the fact that he keeps asking for more and more money. He's literally, it's like proving the proverb true by Margaret Thatcher, the woman he quotes concerning you eventually run out of other people's money. And this is what's happening in California. Let's take a look at what Kathy Hochul said just a few weeks ago. Okay, this is all a game, a mind game for New Yorkers, for people who have actually moved out of New York, the high class, because of the taxes, taxing the rich, taxing the whiter neighborhoods. These are Zohran Mamdani's policies, tax the white neighborhoods. He's a racist. He calls it, he actually says that he's not a racist, but, well, do we really believe him?
What can we do to take off some of that pain that New Yorkers are feeling that I hear about literally every day? What I want to make sure we are smart about is having a system in place where it's not just taxing for the sake of taxing.
And by the way, is that Gandalf? I saw the beard. We'll go back to the clip and we might see if it's Gandalf or not.
And being conscious of the facts that I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state. Right? Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who stepped up. Okay, cut me the checks. I mean, just if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded.
Yes, it has been. And you need them to come back. Why? To fund these government-ran grocery stores. This is aging like milk. And it's getting very stinky very fast. And so, of course, the announcement of Zohran Mamdani talking about telling New Yorkers that he is going to open up 5 grocery stores, 5 new grocery stores. Let's take a look. He said last year, I told New Yorkers we would open city-owned grocery stores to take on the affordability crisis. Today, we are delivering 5 stores. He said today. 1 in each borough with the first opening next year. But he said today. Okay, all right. We're building a city where people can afford the basics leave survival mode behind and pursue their dreams. Here's to healthy families, thriving communities, and promises kept. The issue here, too, is we see New Yorkers that have been living there for 5 minutes, the ones who voted for Zohran Mamdani, the fact that this is even a sanctuary city as well, with the most of his support that came from illegal immigrants, according to polls prior to his election, or rather, not illegal immigrants, but what's the word? Foreign-born, I should say, had a staggering high amount of foreign-born versus Americans when it came to him and Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo actually had a higher percentage in American-born voters. I think the number was 43% for Andrew, and it was like a low number for Zohran Mamdani. I think it was around, I want to say 20 to 30, if I'm not mistaken. Might have been even less. But his numbers shot up to close to 80% when it came to foreign-born. And we looked at this on the broadcast. You can get those numbers more clearly if you just want to do the research, looking at these. I forget, we've done it on this broadcast. You could probably look back at some of the videos. I don't have that pulled up for you right now. I might grab it later in the show so we can just pull that data up for you because of this specific conversation here. But when we're talking about Zohran Mamdani and his affordability, his budget deficit, his deficit of, what was the number? That Eric Adams had mentioned that they're going to have a deficit if it continued the way they were going. Let's take a look at Zohran Mamdani here as well. Remember, this is his first 100 days speech here. And one of the things that he said during his gubernatorial race was that he will continue to take on Donald Trump. That's not something that he said in this speech. You'd imagine that he would go back and say, look, we're continuing to take on Donald Trump. And yes, he is, in a sense, because of the sanctuary city position that he holds, the fact that he wants to protect illegals, the fact that he's doing so much, and he's honestly destroying this city. And even Trump has said that as of recent, talking about the socialist mayor, Zohran Mamdani.
That to deliver this great society, we should tax the rich. Today,
he gets a little standing ovation here, okay? They're all already standing there.
Today, we know these leaders as the sewer socialists. But for years, Milwaukeeans knew them simply as leaders who delivered. It's time we bring that to New York City. And yes, that means you too, Giannis. Come join the Knicks next year as we defend our title. In all seriousness, as I've said time and again, there is no problem too big, no task too small. Universal child care was a problem deemed too big to take on. Standing up for workers against corporations was a problem too big to take on. Building more homes, lowering crime to historic levels, and defending tenants against bad landlords, these were problems too big to take on. But here's the truth. Nothing is too big for New York City to take on.
But in order to take on these two big things for New York, this is what Zohran Mamdani has to do. Mind you, it's only to bring back the high top income earners back into New York so that they can afford their agenda. Relying solely on these high tax base individuals in order to complete his vision for New York. How far do we think this is going to go? How far do we think this is going to go before it comes crumbling down and people really regret voting Zohran Mamdani in? The problem is that this base who voted for him is only going to get bigger and bigger as he continues to go down this socialist base. And quite frankly, with Hochul's term coming to an end, what are we going to see next? Are we going to see somebody who is going to be in favor of putting New Yorkers first, but not in a socialist manner that is going to use others' money? We saw Kathy Hochul backtrack a little bit at first. Actually, she was backtracking. Some of the stuff that Zohran Mamdani had said, she didn't endorse him up until like literally, I think it was just a couple of days before just before the election. It was silence. And now she's having to make herself, I don't know, look like she's doing something. Because Zohran Mamdani is the sort of this young face, this very driven man. And look, he's got some big ambitions. But look, who knows if they're even going to work. Let's take a look at this.
When I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is
That is crazy. What is that? I've never seen that in my life. God bless you. You sent a power potion. That is so cool. It just came up in the chat. I'm not sure if you guys saw that. That was crazy. That was cool. Appreciate that. Wonderful gift, brother. Thank you so much.
luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This pied-à-terre tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich, those who store their wealth in New York City real estate, but who don't actually live here. But even so, they're able to reap the huge financial rewards of owning property in, dare I say, the greatest city in the world. And most of the time, these units are sitting empty, since again, they don't actually live here. This is a fundamentally unfair system that hurts working New Yorkers. Now, it's coming to an end. This tax will raise at least $500 million directly for the city. It'll help fund things like free childcare, cleaner streets, and safer neighborhoods. As mayor, I believe everyone has a role to play in contributing to our city, and some a little bit more than others. Happy Tax Day, New York.
But you see more and more the tax base, the high-income earners are leaving New York City, companies leaving New York City because of these policies that he wants to enact. And it's not looking good for New York. And it's only going to get worse, just as it did in California, where you see massive numbers. And, you know, let me see if I can find the report really quick. Where I literally saw this just today. But otherwise, there is reports of, obviously we've heard of the California exodus, but reports of nearly 1,000 people are leaving daily. And, you know, as somebody who works delivering, right? We're not talking about food delivery. We're talking about delivering packages for a living. I see a lot of, especially in the rich neighborhoods, a lot of people, a lot of houses for sale. And there's a lot of policies, obviously, with some of the people that have been grandfathered into the, I forget what it is, AB 913, I think it is, or AB 915, something like that, that grandfathers them into a specific property tax. But the folks who, moved into California during the Biden era, their homes nearly doubled, or in some cases tripled, in their value, and they couldn't afford the taxes because of their increase in their homes and the price of their homes. And so you see many of those people actually moving out of California. And what Steve Hilton wants to do, the top Republican for California governor, wants to fix these issues that Gavin Newsom said he was fixing but couldn't fix, to bring more money back into the pocket of the everyday California. And this is why it's so important that we're looking at issues when it comes to New York, when it comes to California, that this doesn't happen to your state. The rich will move, they'll move to red states. This always happens. They always leave. And so you see just in that video alone, and Zohran Mamdani talking about they're going to tax the folks who have a home worth more than $5 million. What do you think they're going to do with that property? Kathy Hochul literally posted on Twitter, or I should say X rather. I keep wanting to call it Twitter. But she says this, okay? This is important to show. This is Kathy Hochul just a couple of days ago. Actually today, a couple of hours ago, says New York City New Yorkers show up for the city every day. Some of the wealthiest property owners and foreign oligarchs don't. It's time they start contributing like everyone else. Saudi tycoon slashes price of never lived in NYC penthouse by $64 million, initially listed for $169 million. Look, they need to get out. They're looking to get out quick. Why? Because of this reason. The fact that they are going to tax these folks more and more, and they might put their money elsewhere into another state that is willing to take their money, probably Florida. And Florida is actually introducing a tax. Well, first of all, California is looking to introduce an exit tax. Florida is looking to introduce a type of tax for folks to move in. If I'm something like that, if I'm not mistaken, I'll look for that in a moment. But it says Saudi Prince New Yorker's Nest is listing 48.5 million. Wealthiest oligarchs and other elites with Russian business ties have at least 570 million invested in upscale Manhattan real estate. Here's where their properties are located. 2 billionaire buyers revealed at 157. Carl Icahn takes another run at selling Muslim Tower penthouse. But you're going to see the comments are just not favorable towards Kathy Hochul. But again, she's literally talking about, look, we need the tax base to come back. We need these top income earners to come back and invest in New York so we can make it all affordable for everybody. How does that make any sense? Look, socialism only works if you have people that are willing to do this on their own. And so you have Glenn Beck who's saying very, what's the word? How do I say, what's the word here? Excuse me. Sorry for that, guys. Very sarcastically that he should help New Yorkers by moving back there. Again, very sarcastic in his little podcast spiel concerning this. So switching gears here for a moment, because we've got so much to talk about concerning California, concerning New York. You see, every person I've known that lived there no longer does. They all complain about the smell of urine in the subways during the summer, the rats, the crime. It's bad there. New York is terrible. Look, as beautiful as it can be in some of the nicest sort of nooks and crannies of that city. I mean, I spent 3 hours walking through Manhattan, literally, just to get to B&H, if you guys know where B&H is. Love camera gear, love camera equipment, all that stuff. I walked all the way from the Central Park all the way down just to see the city. I got to see, like just everyday life. God bless you for your wonderful gifts, Dead Man Lives. Appreciate your support, dude. God bless you. Socialism, like every word, is one of these words that have many different meanings to many different people. Look, the only way you can understand socialism as it is meant to be, because yes, you have socialism that can mean one thing to another person, is what Karl Marx wrote in his Communist Manifesto. You can look at page 41, page 41. You talk about what is his idea. And throughout, you talk about the bourgeoisie and the proletariat and the audience who he is catering to, which of course is the low class, but he ends up catering to the high class, the bourgeoisie, or the bourgeoisie, however you want to pronounce it, because of the enticing ability to actually sway the proletariat towards his position in order to create this society that is this utopia. Going into that more on another podcast, but otherwise we've looked at that and it's quite interesting. But you have Tulsi Gabbard, who's referring Trump impeachment whistleblower for possible prosecution. It looks like MS Now and the host who's talking about this is pretty, what's the word? Flustered, flabbergasted, frustrated. Let's take a look.
Moments ago, MS Now has just confirmed Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard referred the whistleblower whose complaint led to the first impeachment of President Trump and the Inspector General who deemed their complaint credible for possible criminal prosecution by the Trump Justice Department. The move comes days after Gabbard released documents alleging a conspiracy behind Trump's first impeachment. Except, folks, the documents prove no such thing, okay? Also today, the Justice Department that will review this criminal referral is the same one that just asked a federal appeals court to throw out the seditious conspiracy convictions of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers who were sentenced for leading far-right extremist groups and attacking the Capitol.
Now, you got to see the guest that she brings in here and what he says. We're going to get to that here in a moment, but here's the report here. Tulsi Gabbard exposes conspiracy led by Congress to impeach Trump. Okay, what's interesting is that they're actually looking for the pattern here as to what was going down with this whistleblower and the what's the word for him? There's a specific word. The Inspector General aggressively advanced a so-called whistleblower's narrative using a witness who co-authored the 2017 Russia hoax that was used as the basis for Trump's impeachment. And look, this is also, we're also on the heels of some impeachment articles that were just formally submitted for Pete Hegseth. The same sort of format that we're seeing here is possibly being used against Pete Hegseth, of course, from the Democrat Party. We're going to be looking at that also in a moment. But let's continue on here.
On January 6th. Now, Trump had already commuted the sentences of these leaders, but this move would go a step further and erase the convictions. In both instances, the administration, it is not just trying to sanitize the past. It is laying the groundwork for future efforts to undermine elections, and we need to be very clear about that.
So now this is all about elections. All about elections. Of course, we have midterms coming up. Let's find out.
Joining us now is Mark Elias, someone who is extremely clear, the founder of Democracy Docket and chair of the Elias Law Group.
He's
Mark
extremely
Elias,
clear.
What is the DNI doing here?
They're doing Donald Trump's bidding. I mean, they are doing exactly what Simone said. They are trying to weaponize the government against Donald Trump's political opponents, right? So that's the breaking news now, is that, you know, a Department of Justice that has gone after Donald Trump's enemies is now going to presumably go after more of their enemies. You know, the acting attorney general has gone so far as to say that it's the president's duty to have the Department of Justice go after his enemies and that Americans should be happy. Those are his words, not mine. So that's part of it. The second part is what Simone said, which...
So the first part, essentially what he's saying is they're weaponizing the DOJ against Trump's opponents, but in reality, it's not so hard. This is accountability. We've seen so many, we've seen even Americans turning out in numbers, record numbers to Donald Trump for the election in November, even after he was convicted of these, wild convictions that they literally tried to get him in this man. Look, and many on the left were saying this was an absolute mistake, that they shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have prosecuted Trump or convicted him. They really tried. We see exactly why. And they're trying to do this again and again. And they will continue to try to do this. We see many calling to invoke the 25th Amendment. Washington, D.C. says today, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard releases never-before-seen documents exposing a coordinated effort by elements within the intelligence community, including a former inspector general, to manufacture a conspiracy that was used as the basis to impeach President Trump in 2019. Here's the impeachment articles introduced against also Secretary Hegseth because of, guess what? Of course, the war, calling it sort of unjustified here. An unlawful war. Let's take a look.
Yasmin Ansari from Arizona. She's putting forth this after telegraphing it earlier in the week that this is the direction that she's going. In these articles of impeachment, there are about 6 articles here. It's for unauthorized war use against Iran and reckless endangerment of United States service members, violations of the law of armed conflict and targeting civilians, negligence and reckless handling of sensitive military information, obstruction of Congress and oversight, abuse of power, politicization of the armed forces.
Now, we're going to look at that a little more in a second, but I do want to address the comment. You say you wouldn't have clean running water without taxes. The problem with that statement alone is you see states like California who have taxed literally every inch of your wallet in order to, and they say it's being used for good causes, right? We talk about the high-speed rail system, now high-speed bus. Now they need more money, right? According to Mayor Karen Bass, they need $163 million more. At what point does taxing become too much? And everybody brings about, America went to war over a 2% tax. But I think the real important aspect of this is that Americans are being taxed at an amount that is staggering, where we are beginning to become negative because we don't have, we're going into the negative because of the fact that we are getting taxed so much on our paychecks. And all the little taxes, especially in California, goes to here, goes to there, but we see no benefit of this. We don't reap that benefit of having all this money taxed away from us. Potholes are still there. Construction still happens, and it takes forever. There's literally, this high-speed rail system is nowhere to be found. Nothing. California using $360 million for an expansion of the Capitol, taxpayer money, and everybody was all, up in arms about Donald Trump using private money, privately funded money for the ballroom. Privately, publicly, non-American money. Non-American, or how should I say this? Not taxed by the Americans too. This is not funded by the American taxpayer. That's the better word, better way to put it. High-speed overpass. And you're right as well. There's this overpass that they built that was supposed to allow wildlife to cross, and it's literally in the middle of a freeway that has no connecting bridge. No connecting joints, however you want to call it, in order to allow these animals to pass, just sitting there, floating right over this freeway. I don't understand. I just don't understand how people continue to vote these imbeciles into office and expect to continue voting to get somewhere. And this is why you see Californians continue to leave. This is why you're going to see New Yorkers continue to leave, because these are just bad policies. It's not going to work out.
And conduct bringing disrepute upon the United States and its armed services. I do want to point out, though, that the likelihood that this goes anywhere is pretty low, especially.
So even CBS calling this, like, this is just a show here. Just a show. Whether this is actually going to go to trial, whether this is actually going to go through, and to gain support. There's a few that are in support of this, but they need more to support this impeachment. Probably won't go through. This is CBS saying this.
Considering this is a member of the minority party who it's unclear if she got backing or the support from Democratic leadership before moving forward with this. On top of that, the threshold for articles or impeaching a cabinet member is pretty high, considering it would have to go through the Senate, even if all Democrats were to support this measure and a handful of Republicans needed to pass it through a simple majority of the House for it to actually stick. But I also got to point out the parallel here between what we saw in the last administration when Republicans looked to impeach DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. While it did just narrowly pass out of the House, he was impeached after unsuccessfully being impeached their first effort. It ultimately was dismissed by the Senate, even though the majority in the Senate were Republicans at that time.
Okay, this begs a question relative to the articles of impeachment. So right now, as you point out, minority.
So you're saying go look up who donated for the ballroom and look up was the terrible design. I actually thought you said lock up. But if you did say lock up, I mean, then we'd need to lock up those who did the Obama administration, during the Obama administration, who spent $376 million for White House renovations, taxpayer money. But you're not saying locked up. So anyway, otherwise, this is, again, what Tulsi Gabbard exposed here and what they're seeking to do. Here's a quote here. The deep state actors within the intelligence community concocted a false narrative that was used by Congress to usurp the will of the American people to impeach the duly elected president of the United States. This is a quote from Tulsi Gabbard. She said, Inspector General Atkinson failed to uphold his responsibility to the people, to the American people, putting political motivations over the truth. And this, along with the politicization of the whistleblower process by a former CIA employee who was working hand in glove with Democrats in Congress, are egregious examples of the deep state playbook on how to weaponize the intelligence community, exposing these tactics and showing how they undermine the fabric of our democratic republic, furthers the critical cause of transparency and accountability, and will help prevent future abuse of power. This is potentially why we see also this removal of, and why the Democrats chose to remove Eric Swalwell at this time tells you a lot. There's so much, especially the fact that he was involved in the, during the first, what was it? During Donald Trump. What was it? I have to think. Anyway, so what's interesting is that they probably kept him in power because of the fact that he was a strong, they probably kept him where he was because he was a strong anti-Trump voice. But these allegations grew so big that it was really difficult for them to continue to push his race further in California, and ultimately led to him dropping out and resigning from Congress. So all this is very key, especially leading up to, and there's so much. I mean, people are talking about this maybe being a Me Too movement because of, how this is, closely related to the midterm elections here. You say the CIA removed him. Maybe. I don't know. I think we're just talking strictly about the Democrats. They're just losing popularity amongst the Americans. The American left. The libs. This is what we're seeing. Now, on the next broadcast, we're going to be looking at more stuff. We're talking about, obviously, this broadcast, we talked about some of the impeachment news. We're talking about New York, Zohran Mamdani. But also, Donald Trump on Truth Social said trying to get a little breathing room between Israel and Lebanon, which we know Lebanon, out of Lebanon, we have the Hezbollah militia that is one of the proxies of Iran. And look, Hezbollah kind of runs Lebanon. The Lebanese government doesn't really have power, and they have their own army, but doesn't really have their own power over the Hezbollah militia because they're heavily funded by Iran. But he says it's been a long time since the two leaders have spoken, like 34 years. It will happen tomorrow. What an interesting conversation that might happen soon. But look, there is, concerning this and why we're going to go through some of this and many other things concerning what is happening with this situation, this discussion, this talk with these two leaders, and what is happening, of course, with Iran and America, and of course, Bible prophecy, and where this is all leading to. And folks might not be interested in that, but look, I am interested in it. I want to share it with you guys, all this stuff that is happening. You say, do you think people are telling the president what to do? Concerning what exactly? President has a lot of advisors around him. People like J.D. Vance, Mike Johnson, many others. People are of the Christian faith, of course, but folks who are going to Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, a lot of these folks that have they have Trump's ear. But he's ultimately going to do what he wants to do. We saw this report from the, I keep forgetting the name of the dang news article. The New York Times, talking about the men during this little get-together meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, talking about, Trump was attempting to, or Netanyahu was attempting to pull Trump in to the Middle Eastern drums, the drums of war, to help him, to aid him in actually focusing on 4 points, according to this New York Times article. 4 points in order to really get America's backing into this war. J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Dan Kane, and many others that were in that little meeting, they essentially said, look, they called balls and strikes. Trump wanted to get away with conducting 2 of those, which was Iran's nuclear weapon and the supreme leader being taken out. Now, look, if Trump is so far deep in this, if he pulls out now, doesn't have a deal with Iran, he loses. It's a loss. All that for nothing. So he needs to make a deal. And he's not going to settle. Well, you know, we'll see what deal comes of this. But if he does make a deal, then Iran loses. Trump can call victory, and they can get on with these peace talks. And there's just so much to it. There's so much that is on the horizon that we don't even know, you know, in the next coming weeks concerning this. So as we cover that and more tomorrow, Lord willing, I'm sure many of us are working super late these days. And God bless you for your gift. I saw that come in. Stay hydrated. Yeah, you know what? I need some hydration here. I need some water. Appreciate you guys for joining me on this night's broadcast. We'll be covering some more stuff again tomorrow, Lord willing. And if you have any final thoughts, email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyokeshow.com. And God bless you so much. Thank you for your support, Dead Man Lives, and for being a moderator as well. Your wonderful time that is donated here is a blessing. And thanks so much for you guys also chiming in on the chat. This is great when we have from both sides of the aisle to just literally discuss these matters. Anyway, just making sure I'm not, say Donnie, no, you're referring to somebody else. All right. Yeah, I'm just making sure I'm not losing any of the comments here that are passing by. Appreciate you guys for joining me, and we'll see you guys in the next broadcast. Thank you so much. God bless.